contribution is also in the field of history, especially in the philosophy of history. He has published a book in German in 1949 with the title The Origin and Goal of History. And in that book, he speaks about an axial age or an accent site. In German, it is called accent site, but it is translated into English as axial age. There, Jaspers argued that during the axial age, you see, before entering into axial age, of course, in the last class I just mentioned it. Normally, we do divide history into two on the basis that Jesus was born as the milestone in history, or as the marking point or the dividing point in history. But Karl Jaspers does not agree with that kind of division. He would say that it is not the birth of Jesus that should be considered as the dividing line of history. On the other hand, he would say that the spiritual foundations of humanity were laid simultaneously at a certain age, and that age should be considered as not only the spiritual foundations, but the rational foundations, the spiritual foundations, and even the humanitarian foundations. All these foundations were laid simultaneously during the period between 800 and 200 BC, according to him. Therefore, that period should be considered as the axis of history, according to Karl Jaspers. And of course, that book was it was published in German in 1949, but it was later translated into English, and now that book is available. Even in your library, most probably you will have access to that book. And he would say,
Father, 1 second, if you could mail the PPTs now to one of us, we could
you will find
present it.
some literature.
You can share it
yeah, we can share it.
Okay. You will get an article of me. I have given the reference. Sooraj George Pittappillil, Ethics as Optics, Levinas Interrogates Nietzsche. It was published in Jiva Darshana, Bangalore Journal of Philosophy in 2018 as the second issue, the December issue. And that's the hard copy. Or you can access the soft copy of that article from academia.edu. Of course, the site address is given there. Otherwise, you can also get into academia.edu and you just type my name, Sooraj George Pittappillil, then you will find that article. You can download it as PDF file. And then, of course, quite a lot of references are there to Aristotle. I'm sorry that there is no reference to Plato there, because that article was especially in connection with pity, and therefore I have given certain references of Aristotle, not of Plato. But anyway, you will get it. You will get the original references. Okay, fine. Now, okay. So you can see me well, no? So, would you just go to the next slide? Accent
Yes,
site?
sir.
Okay. So, this is the name of the German philosopher. Of course, you might have heard about him, Karl Jaspers. He was a famous German philosopher who lived in the 20th century. And his book, The Origin and Goal of History, is actually a landmark in the history of philosophy, and also as a book that deals with philosophy of history. And in that book, he introduces a new concept. Would you just go to the next slide? Accent site, or the axial age. And according to him, during the axial age, the spiritual foundation, you see, as I told you, Karl Jaspers, his name is pronounced as Karl Jaspers, not as Jaspers, because that name is a German name. Therefore, it is pronounced as Jaspers. And Jaspers argued, or he doesn't agree with the normal division of history as AD and BC. On the other hand, he would say that history must be divided as pre-axial and post-axial. So there must be an axis of history, and that axis, according to him, lies between 800 BC and 200 BC. And that axis, I mean, uh, the criterion for uh, taking this period between, between 800 and 200 BC as the axis, he would say that the spiritual foundations, and I would add the spiritual, rational, philosophical, and even the humanitarian foundations of humanity were laid simultaneously and independently everywhere. It was a ubiquitous phenomenon. That means the surge of reason, or the birth of reason, I would say, or the birth of logos, according to him. Uh, in the pre-axial period, according to him, everybody appealed to the supernatural. Uh, the supernatural categories or supernatural powers to explain the natural things or the natural phenomena. But in the axial period or in the post-axial period, uh, these mythological explanations were supplanted or replaced by some logical, rational explanations. So logos is supplanting mythos. That is what is happening there, or the replacement of mythos by logos is the key phenomenon that we find in the axial age. So he would say, even though this period is between 800 and 200 BC, when we pinpoint this axis, it would be somewhere around 500 BC, according to him. Can we go to the next slide? Therefore, he described the axial age as an interregnum between two ages of great empire. It's a pause for liberty, a deep breath, bringing the most lucid consciousness. So the consciousness of humanity, the consciousness of this world itself got got its maturity, or the world has proclaimed that it has uh, uh, it has got maturity, or it has achieved maturity. So the world proclaims, or the humanity proclaims to the whole world that we have acquired, or we have achieved maturity. That is what is happening in the axial age. Therefore, he would say in India, in China, in Japan, and in Europe, everywhere we have got this surge of consciousness, this surge of logos, this surge of reason. For example, let me tell you an example. uh, in the Greek mythology, no matter whether it is in the Greek mythology or in the Indian mythology, for example, if we ask somebody to explain the reason of thunderbolt, or the reason behind thunderbolt, then of course, according to mythology, we would say that Lord Indra wields his Vajrayuda, and that's the reason for thunderbolt. Of course, it's a kind of explanation. So these people, those who narrated myths, or those who created myths, they were also very intelligent people. They were actually very intelligent, but still, in order to explain the physical phenomena, they had always a recourse to supernatural forces or supernatural categories. That's why if they are asked to explain the reason for thunderbolt, a natural phenomenon, they would give an explanation with an appeal to the supernatural force, or the supernatural phenomenon called the wielding of Vajrayudha by Indra. So such kind of explanations are everywhere. It's a ubiquitous phenomenon everywhere in the world, in the Greek mythology, in the Nordic mythology, everywhere, or in the Far Eastern mythologies, we have got such narratives or similar explanations for natural phenomena. So that's the age of mythos. A lot of mythologies are there, and such explanations are gradually replaced by the logical explanations according to Jaspers. Therefore, he says that with that birth of reason, or with the maturity of reason, then facts are reigning the world. So the myths are, or the mythos, the Greek term used is mythos, and mythos is replaced by logos, according to him. Can we just go to the next slide? So he would say Now, mythos are replaced by facts or logos. Logos means reason, and mythos means mythical explanations. So the mythical explanations are not at all found in this new post-axial age, according to Karl Jaspers. Then this age, or the this when this appeal to the supernatural is away from our away in our explanations, that phenomenon is poetically described by a German poet. Of course, you might have heard about him. Shall we go to the next slide? So you see, then the history is narrated by Karl Jaspers as the history of de-divinization. He would say that when we read the history is the history of de-divinization of this world. For example, the earliest narratives about this world was saturated with divine elements. So, as science progresses, or as the history progresses, we would find a systematic de-divinization parallel to the development of history. So the divine elements are slowly washed out, or they are slowly pushed away from our explanations. So as science grows, science would naturally push the divine elements out of explanations, or it will expel out the divine elements from explanations of natural phenomena. Therefore, the history, according to Karl Jaspers, the history must be seen as the history of the de-divinization, or a de-divinization process is seen along the development of history. Therefore, the appeal to the supernatural is away, and that is what is happening even today. For example, when science progresses, for example, even according to positivism, when the scientific age arises, when it comes, then the metaphysical superstitious ages are no more. That's what positivism, according to August Comte, also says. Shall we move to the next slide? So the German poet Friedrich Schiller, of course, he's a 18th century poet, and he has written a famous poem, The Gods of Greece. Schiller is considered as the second German poet after Goethe. Perhaps Goethe is known as the greatest German literary figure, and the second one is, of course, Friedrich Schiller. And Schiller's Gods of Greece. Shall we move to the next slide? Schiller, in his Gods of Greece, he would say that the gods of Greece, or there was a period when Greece was ruled by gods, or the world was ruled by not only Greece, the Western world. For example, when he speaks about Greece, as P.B. Shelley says, we all are Greeks. That means we all are indebted to the Greek culture. For example, as a European, he says that we all are Greeks. In that statement, we can understand that the whole European culture is indebted to the Greek culture or the Greek philosophy. Therefore, he would say that the gods, when he uses the term Greece, he means Europe as such. And according to him, the gods of Greece were once ruling the whole world. For every explanation, we had depended upon these gods of Greece. But with the emergence of logos, with the emergence of science, or in the modern world, we seldom speak about the Greek gods. Therefore, the gods of Greece are away. They have gone to their heavenly abode. We hardly see them in this world. That's why they are gone. Yeah, in the age gone by, who ruled the world? A world, how lovely then, and guided still the steps of happy men. So goes the poem. Shall we go to the next slide? Yes. My dear friends, just a minute, just 2 minutes. So now the gods are no more seen in this world, and we don't depend upon these gods for our explanations, according to Schiller. That's why he laments on the misfortune of gods, because they were very powerful during the period of mythos, or during the pre-axial period they were very powerful, but in the post-axial period these gods are no more powerful, according to Schiller. Then of course, right now we are living in the post-axial age, and this post-axial age is an age which is divided into four periods: the ancient period, the Middle Ages, then of course the Renaissance period, Renaissance and modern period, and then of course the post-Hegelian or the contemporary period in philosophical circles. That's why I have planned the course as four modules: as the ancient period, the medieval period, then of course the Renaissance and modern period, then the contemporary or the post-Hegelian period. So right now we are entering into the first module. So what I told you right now is just a prelude to the division of periods in the history of philosophy. So right now we are dealing with the post-axial age, or we are living in the post-axial age according to Karl Jaspers. And this post-axial period itself, that means an age which is reigned by reason, reigned by logos, that is divided into four. So in the post-axial age, we do seldom speak about myths. We do speak about facts, we do speak about material things, and we do speak about rational things. We try to give rational explanations, or humanitarian explanations, or even scientific explanations for things. That's what is meant by the history of philosophy as these four periods. Okay, shall we move to the next slide? Okay, you see, this is a famous fresco painting done by Raffaello Sanzio. His full name is Raffaello Sanzio, and it's a fresco painting. Its original is in Vatican Museum. In Vatican Museum, there is a room dedicated to uh, Raphael. That room is known as the room of Raphael, and in that room there are four fresco paintings by Raphael, and this is the one which he dedicated to philosophy. Of course, he had taken four different themes: one for literature, one for philosophy, one for theology, and one for jurisprudence. And this is the painting he dedicated for philosophy. And of course, this is his magnum opus. Raphael is actually known for this painting. And this painting, it depicts the school of Athens. Of course, even though its name is School of Athens, it does not limit its extent to Athens, not even to the period of Plato and Aristotle. Of course, the central figures are Plato and Aristotle. So the time period of the figures who are present, or the persons who are present in this painting, would range from 600 BC to 400 AD, I would say. And almost all of them are from the Greek world, either from the heartland of Greece, or from Magna Graecia, from South Italy, or from Alexandria, I mean, from Egypt or from North Africa. And the central figures, you see, we would move to the next slide. The central figures are Plato and Aristotle. You can, of course, find one old man and his disciple, a young man. This old man having the face of Leonardo da Vinci. Of course, you see, Raphael is known as one of the trinity of Italian Renaissance painting, the others being Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, and he has dedicated the painting of Plato to Leonardo da Vinci, because even though that man is Plato, his face is that of Leonardo da Vinci. And of course, the face of Aristotle is that of Giuliano da Sangallo. So they are two great painters of Italian tradition, and therefore he has given the face of Leonardo da Vinci to Plato. And Plato, this old man, you will see him pointing his finger to the skies. Can you see it? Of course, you can see it. And he is pointing his finger towards the skies and saying Aristotle, or he is depicted as saying to Aristotle that the reality is above the skies. The term he uses, Plato uses, is hyper Uranus. And you see, in Platonic philosophy, he says that the reality is not what you see here in this world. On the other hand, reality is above the skies, or reality is invisible. For example, that is what is in the skies, or that is what is above the skies. You cannot see. It is invisible. Therefore, he says that the really real thing is invisible. Therefore, he would say that the reality is idea, and the real world is ideal world, which is above the skies. And then, of course, you will find his disciple Aristotle along with him. He is also having another book in his hand, and that book is Ethica Nicomacheia. And with that book in hand, you will find Aristotle pacifying the agrees with teacher with.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Your voice is breaking.
Can you hear me well?
Now it's okay, sir. Now it is okay.
Can you hear me well?
Yes, sir, but there is some music going on in the background.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Can you,
Okay.
just a minute. I think the network is also. Can you
Yes,
hear
sir.
me well now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
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 Okay,
So
sir.
you can now you can hear me well, no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you will find Aristotle, his disciple, of course, a young man. He's disagreeing with Plato, and he says that what you see around you is also real. And he says he has got another book in his hand, and that book is Ethica, or Ethica Nicomacheia, or the Nicomachean Ethics. And we can also interpret that since his fingers are not pointing towards earth, we can also interpret that he is saying that virtue stands in the middle, because he has got Nicomachean Ethics in his hand, and it is in that book Aristotle says that virtue stands in the middle. We all have heard about that statement, virtue stands in the middle. That famous statement of Aristotle is found in this book, Ethica Nicomacheia, or Nicomachean Ethics. That's why we can also interpret that he is disagreeing with Plato, and he is adding that virtue stands in the middle. Anyway, the classical interpretation is that Aristotle, pointing his finger towards the skies, says that reality is idea, whereas Plato says that reality is idea, and Aristotle says that reality is matter. So the whole history of philosophy should be now found or seen as the history of the disagreement between, or the history of the quarrel, or the history of strife, or the battle between this master and his disciple. Whether idea has got priority over matter, or matter has got priority over idea. That is the key point of discussion in philosophy even today. So since Platonic times, we have always got this quarrel as the key element in the history of philosophy. So either the philosophers would side with Plato, or they would side with Aristotle. Therefore, they are the central figures as far as the history of philosophy is concerned. And of course, Plato is known as the greatest philosopher who ever lived in this world. Therefore, he is known as the emperor of philosophy. And perhaps you might have heard about uh, uh, Alfred North Whitehead, a 20th century mathematician cum philosopher. Once he famously said, the whole history of Western philosophy should be seen as footnotes to Plato. So only Plato is the real philosopher. All other philosophers are just footnotes to Plato. That's how Alfred North Whitehead pays tribute to Plato. And you see, Plato is having a book in his hand. That book is Timaeus. And in that book, he deals with his metaphysics or his cosmology, I mean, his theory of the world, theory of universe, and his theory of reality. And you see, uh, Plato's teacher was Socrates. Of course, you might have thought that why did I skip Socrates? Of course, Socrates is their teacher, but unfortunately, Socrates has written no books. All the informations we have got about Socrates comes from Platonic literature. Plato was his disciple, and Plato had a very mellifluent language. That's why once Cicero said, if Jupiter comes to this world and if he speaks to human beings in a human language, then of course he would choose Greek and he would choose Plato's Greek, because no one has surpassed Plato in writing Greek. I mean the prosaic Greek. Of course, in poetic Greek, perhaps there are so many other figures, but in prosaic Greek, no one has excelled Plato. So beautiful was his language, and therefore Plato, through his dialogues, immortalized his teacher Socrates. So we don't have any literature of Socrates except that of Plato. So Plato has written quite a lot of dialogues in which Socrates is the key figure, or Socrates is the main character. And almost all the names of his dialogues uh, are uh, are from the names of the interlocutors. I mean, the primary interlocutor. For example, in Plato's dialogues, we would find Socrates as the key, what we call the key figure, or in the modern military terms, I would say the encounter specialist. He is actually an encounter specialist, and he would encounter his opponents with arguments, and then towards the end of the argument, most probably Socrates' position would be the predominant one, or the others would otherwise, I would say, he would make others agree with him, or the others would quite naturally agree with Socrates. So among the other interlocutors, there would be one prominent figure, and the name of that prominent figure would be given as the title of the book. For example, in Timaeus, of course, Socrates is the central figure, or the main participant of dialogue, but the second one is Timaeus. And of course, with Timaeus, there are so many other interlocutors. So that's how he gives name, or he gives title to his dialogues. And then, of course, Plato's greatest work, or his magnum opus, is not Timaeus, but his Republic. And in Republic, shall we move to the next slide? Shall we move to the next slide?
Sir, the slide has been changed. Can you see that? Genuine
Yeah.
Plato?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Then in Plato's, one of his dialogues in Sophist. Sophist is the name of another dialogue, and in Sophist he he actually narrates his own position, even though in history of philosophy, almost in almost all the history books of philosophy, Plato is depicted as an idealist. Of course, he's an idealist. I would agree with almost all the historians of philosophy. But anyway, quite interestingly, I have found this statement in his sophist, in his dialogue, where he does not blindly side with idealism. That means in that dialogue, he would say that we will have to uh, take certain good characteristics or certain pertinent characteristics from both idealism and materialism. That's why he must declare that reality or the sum of things is both at once. That means reality is neither exclusively ideal nor exclusively material. That's the famous position, or that's the famous revolutionary position of Plato in Sophist. So, quite contrary to the popular belief about Plato, Plato is not a hardliner in his idealism in Sophist. So, this is a quite interesting topic for you. In Sophist, you will find this statement of Plato. That means it seems that only one course is open to the philosopher who values knowledge and truth above all else. He must refuse to accept from the champions of the forms. Champions of the forms means the idealists. The doctrine that all reality is changeless and exclusively immaterial or ideal. And he must turn a deaf ear to the other party who represent reality as everywhere changing and as only material. Like a child begging for both, he must declare that reality or the sum of things is both at once. So, Plato is encouraging people to uh, to have recourse to the pertinent characteristics of both idealism and materialism. So we should not fall uh, slaves to any of these isms in an exclusive manner. On the other hand, we will have to consider the positive characteristics of both idealism and materialism according to Plato in his Sophist. Shall we move to the next slide? So, in Plato's dialogues, we would also come across the famous Socratic method, which is called the dialectic method. Of course, this dialectic method in contemporary philosophy is very famous, or this methodology itself is associated with the German philosopher Hegel. But anyway, this methodology, the dialectic method, is not a methodology originally of Hegel. On the other hand, this is a Platonic methodology. And according to Plato, the role of a philosopher is that of a midwife. For example, a midwife is not giving birth to her own child, but she is helping the woman to give birth to her child in a healthy way. So she is not delivering her own child. A midwife is not delivering her own child. On the other hand, she helps a pregnant woman to give birth to her child in a healthy way or in a safe way. That's what is the duty of a midwife. And Plato would say that the role of a philosopher is that of a midwife. So it's a glorified midwifery. Philosophy is nothing but a glorified midwifery according to Plato. Of course, it's a this in this dialogue, in his dialogue, in the dialogue called Theaetetus. Actually, Socrates is delivering the dialogue, but it is a Platonic idea. And Plato, therefore, says that philosophy is nothing but maieutic. Philosophy is nothing but maieutic. And of course, if you read certain other source books, you will also find another term called elenctic. Elenctic is also elenctus is also a term used for this maieutic method or the dialectic method. Anyway, the famous term or the popular term is myotics, and myotics is nothing but the glorified midwifery. So the role of a philosopher is that of a midwife. And how does he execute this role of a midwife in philosophy? Then that role is nothing but the role of a what we call a fruitful interlocutor or a fruitful participant in a dialogue. For example, I do have truth deep within me, but I cannot give birth to this truth in a presentable way. For example, everybody has got access to truth, and everybody has got a certain amount of or truth deep within him, but he cannot express that truth in a presentable way. So the philosopher, through constant dialogues, he would make the idea very clear in you. So he will give clarity to you, and after getting that clarity, you can produce that truth in a presentable way, or you can present it in a beautiful way. So the truth is not a gift of the philosopher, but truth is deep within you, and you are helped by the philosopher to give birth to this truth. Therefore, like a midwife, a philosopher is just helping you to extract the truth deep within you. That is the position of Plato, and that style of extracting truth from the interlocutors or those who engage in dialogue is called myotics. So that is the great advantage of the dialogical method or the dialectic method. So in a dialectic method, when you enter into a dialogue with another interlocutors or other interlocutors or other participants of the dialogue, then of course your position will be challenged by them, or you will disagree with them. Then of course you will move on with your dialogues, your agreements and disagreements, then of course your doubts, and towards the end you will have a better clarity about the concept. So the conceptual clarity is achieved through dialogues and these kind of encounters. That's why I called him an encounter specialist. So uh, Socrates should be considered as the greatest uh, encounter specialist in the history of ideas or in the history of dialogue. So this method is called myotics or the dialectic method. And this dialectic method was later reintroduced in the history of philosophy by the famous German philosopher Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. So let us move to the next slide. So this method is named after the classical Greek philosopher Socrates and is introduced by him in Plato's Theaetetus as midwifery, because it is employed to bring out definitions implicit in the interlocutor's beliefs. So when we read the Platonic dialogues, we will get a lot of examples for this myotics or this kind of dialectic method. Okay. Shall we move to the next slide? So Plato. So now we move to the connection between the Platonic philosophy and art and architecture. You see, it was just an introduction to the Platonic system of thought. Plato was, of course, in the history of philosophy, he is always known as an idealist. But as I told you, in his Sophist, he is presenting himself not as a hardliner idealist, but as a moderate philosopher who agrees with both idealism and materialism. But anyway, in his classical work, or in his magnum opus, the greatest work, The Republic, he is actually a thoroughgoing, a hardliner idealist, because he is completely against art and architecture. Then, of course, you would quite naturally ask me, then or why should we learn Plato in literature and art, in the history of literature and art? Of course, as a man who banished poetry, literature, art, and such things from his ideal republic, we cannot ignore Plato. So the history of philosophy uh, must give attention to Platonic contempt of art, poetry, and literature. You see, Plato lived in the fifth and the fourth century BC, and in his Republic, he is actually dealing with a central question or a central theme, because he starts his uh, book Republic with a fundamental question: what is justice? His question is quite simple: what is justice? And in order to get an answer for what justice is, he uh, he enters into dialogue with other people who are present.
Father, your
Yeah,
voice is getting broken. Voice is getting broken. Voice is getting broken.
yeah. Okay, okay, fine. So, in Plato's Republic, he starts with a fundamental question, or the central question, or the starting point of Republic is a question about justice. What justice is? That is his question. Then, of course, for example, even today, when we speak about justice, then we would say that, for example, when we observe the present political situation here in this world, most probably we would be forced to say, or we would be saying, that justice is always with the stronger party, isn't it? For example, it is the great uh, Greek philosopher.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Okay, so
Okay.
uh, so as Solon said, law is just like a spider web. So in the same way, uh, in the first part of the Republic, Thrasymachus, an interlocutor, he says that justice is the interest of the stronger party. Then, of course, Socrates disagrees with him, and he uh, says that justice is not the interest of the stronger party, but we will have to enter into a dialogue to find out what justice really is. And then, towards the end, he would say what justice is. And then, in order to understand what justice is, he would say that in order to understand justice, we have to find out a just society, or we will have to find out the characteristics of a just republic. That's why he has given the title The Republic. So, when Plato writes the book The Republic, actually, he has got in his mind an ideal republic, or a republic where justice is ruling. So the title Republic means the just society, or the just state, or a society where justice reigns. So Republic is nothing but a society where justice reigns. Therefore, in the okay, so uh, now he finds out what is justice, and he speaks about a just society. Then, of course, in order to find out justice, or in order to explain what justice is, he narrates the current scenario of the society where injustice rules. And he would say that in the contemporary age, of course, it was in the fourth century BC, then he would say that in the fourth century BC, in Greek city states, we do find a lot of injustice, or the society abounds in the amount of justice, in injustice. But still, he traces the origin of injustice. He says that from very beginning onwards, the society was not unjust. There was no injustice. So the primary societies were just societies, but somewhere in history, or at some point in history, there entered injustice, or there crept injustice into the society. And when did it creep into the society? That is what he analyzes. There, let's just move to the next slide. There he Okay. Of course, the central theme of this book is what is justice. And then let us move to the next slide. Then this justice must be sought in a society through a societal analysis. We can find out what is justice and what is injustice. Okay, move to next slide. Then in which society does injustice originate? Then he says, he gives the answer in the next slide. In the book number 2 of Republic, especially 368a to 373, he makes a distinction between primitive society and a civilized society. He says that, of course, in Platonic times, the Greek city-states were very civilized, and he lived in a civilized society, and as an Athenian, he was a very civilized man, Plato. But he would say that injustice is a Siamese twin with civilization. With civilization, there is injustice. Without civilization, there is no injustice. So in the natures, for example, in jungle, for example, if you observe the animals, among the animals, there is no injustice. What they do is always justice, because for them, might is right and might is justice for them. So if you are not powerful, you are doomed, and there is no injustice in that. But in a civilized society, among the humans, when they develop from the primitive level to the civilized level, then there creeps injustice slowly and gradually into the society, according to Plato. And then he would say such primitive societies are healthy societies. He would say that such societies are healthy societies, and the civilized societies are uh, feverish societies, he would, according to him, or they are sick societies. They are feverish. He uses the term feverish. Okay, let us move to the next slide. Yes, the next slide. So then he would say, for example, then what is the position of art and architecture in such a society? Well, let us see. For example, in a civilized society, there is, well, he would say, in a primitive society, only the primary needs of the civilians or the primary needs of the citizens are satisfied. For example, they need food, they need clothing, they need shelter, and of course, he would also speak about a shoemaker and such things. For example, he is speaking from a European background, from a Greek background. Therefore, he would say that because without footwears, no one can go out in Europe. Therefore, footwears are a necessary thing, or it's a must. Therefore, he speaks about shoemaker also. Well, anyway, a primitive society needs only food, shelter, clothing, or such basic needs. For example, farmer, we need a farmer, we need a builder to build our shelters. Then, of course, for clothing, we need a weaver, and in order to have food, we need farmer, and likewise, we also need a shoemaker. So in such a society, we don't find, or in such a society, injustice is invisible. We cannot find injustice there. But we shall move to the next slide. But in a civilized society, when the society develops from such a level, I mean, from the primitive level to a civilized level, then we will have a quite a lot of injustice there. For example, in a civilized society, we have got surplus things. For example, we got civilized through farming, because the first the enterprising thing that the human beings from the level of hunter gatherer took, or they engaged in, was agriculture. And through agriculture, we had, of course, surplus food. From surplus food, we started trading. We had markets, we had big societies, we had big families. For example, when we have plenty of food, then we can afford to have more offsprings. Plenty of food, then of course we can afford to have more children. Then of course with the number of children, the society will grow and the civilization starts. So you see, there is a famous philosopher, or there is a famous historian called Will Durant. In his story of civilization, he would say 3 meals a day marks the beginning of civilization, because every civilization begins with 3 meals a day. So food security is the first prerequisite for a civilization. So civilization starts with food security. Therefore, he would say, in a civilized society, we have got food security, and then we have got surplus, and then of course we will start trading, and with trading, with business, with market, and so on, we will have quite a lot of resources, or we will have more resources than what we need to satisfy our primary needs. So we have got a plenty of resources now. We have got enough money, or we have got more than enough money. So we have got resources more than enough. And with that resources, then we will have to create, or we will have to make new demands, or we will have to create new needs. Therefore, we start to develop luxury needs. For example, in such a society, we need delicacies. So apart from 2 square meals a day or 3 square meals a day, we need certain delicacies. We need wine, we need cakes, we need confectionery, and so on. So we need perfumes, we need scents, we need delicacies. Then we need professional hunters. For example, we cannot take up the duty of a hunter. Of course, in the past times, we were hunter gatherers, we were foragers, but right now we cannot get into the forest and hunt down animals. Instead, we will have professional hunters. They will hunt for us, and we will buy meat from them. So we will have hunters, we will have fishermen, then of course we will have artists, then we will have painters, then we will have sculptors, we will have poets, we will have musicians. So Plato says that all art, architecture, literature, poetry, and all these things originate from our luxury needs, not from our primary needs. So that is the relevance of the Platonic philosophy in literature and poetry. So according to Plato, literature or art or poetry, all these things have their origin in injustice. Actually, they are not catering justice in a society, but they are catering injustice in society, because they have got origin in the injustice. It is out of our unnecessary needs that literature originates. It is out of our unnecessary need that art originates. It is out of our unnecessary needs that poetry originates. So the origin of poetry, art, and literature, they are always from our unnecessary demands or unjust demands, and they are a source of injustice according to Plato. Of course, that statement is debatable. If I say that literature is a source of injustice, of course that is debatable, but anyway, they have their origin in injustice, or it is out of the demand for luxury needs that originated injustice. Therefore, the demand for poetry, literature, and art, they are also luxury needs, and such demands created injustice in the society according to Plato. So this is the first concept of Plato about art, poetry, and literature. Then, of course, as a hardliner idealist, he would say that the really real things are ideas. Therefore, the world around us, the material world in which we live, all the things that we find in the material world, they are just images of the ideal world. So the really real world, or the original world, is up above the skies. Therefore, we cannot have any access to these ideas, and what we find here in this world are just images. And when a sculptor makes a sculpture, actually, what is he doing? He is making an image of the image, isn't it? If the really real thing is an idea, and the for example, a human being or an animal or a tree or any material thing in this world, if that thing itself is an image of the ideal world, or if this material world in which we live is an image world or a shadow world, or it consists of certain images of the ideal things, then an artist or a sculptor who makes a sculpture out of these things, or as an image of uh, a human being, or that of an animal, or that of a tree, is actually uh, doing a triplicate work. Actually, this world itself is duplicate, and the artist is again duplicating the duplicate, or he is actually triplicating the reality. So the really real is idea, and this material world is a duplicate world, and through art you are actually making replica of the duplicate. So actually uh, the poets, then the artists and the sculptors, they are triplicating the reality according to Plato. Therefore, Plato is completely against art and literature, art and poetry, sculpture, and everything in his ideal society. Therefore, he would say that one has to ban the artists, poets, and sculptors from his ideal state, and he would say that they don't represent any of the high ideals of his ideal state or republic. Therefore, they are sources of injustice, and he cannot promote art, literature, and poetry or sculpture in his uh, in his ideal world. Okay, then let us move to the. So he would say that my luxury feeds on others' lives. For example, when I have got luxury needs, then of course, in order to have my luxury, I will have to I will have to get the slice of others. Therefore, it's a source of injustice. Here is the origin of injustice according to Plato. So let us move to the next slide. Okay, leave it. The next slide. So this is the Platonic concept about art and poetry. So for Plato, the central themes, for example, as far as Plato is concerned, as far as his theory of literature, poetry, art, and sculpture are concerned, I would say that 2 points are to be remembered. First of all, it is out of human need for luxury that poetry originates, that art originates, that sculpture originates, that literature originates. So it is not quite naturally that literature evolves, but out of uh, what we call extra natural inclinations, or extra natural needs, or superficial needs, or luxury needs, that poetry originates. Therefore, poetry does not correspond to, or poetry does not address the fundamental needs of citizens according to Plato. That is the first point. Then the second point is that this world is an image world, because the really real thing is ideas, and the world in which we live, the material world, is an image of the ideal world, and a poet or a sculptor or an artist is actually triplicating the reality through making the duplicate of the duplicate world. So these are the two fundamental points in Platonic philosophy as far as art and literature are concerned. Well, then we will move to Aristotle, and of course, I think now we will have to wind up with this because today I lost some half an hour due to some technical problems, and once again I beg your pardon for having kept you in waiting. Anyway, I will get it rectified soon. If it is a problem with my computer or with the program itself, I don't know. Then we will have a discussion about Aristotle in the next class. Hello.
Yes, good afternoon, participants. Now the platform is open for discussion. If you have any queries, any doubts to ask Dr. Sooraj Pittappillil, you may unmute your mics and ask him directly. If you can use the chat box, you can write it there. I'll read it out to him. Your convenience. Hello.
Yes.
No, sir. Actually, I'm checking whether any participant has
Okay.
any
Okay.
query.
Okay. Okay. Fine.
Okay. Okay, sir. You can also post, write your questions in the chat box as well.
Yes.
Yes. Father, I had a doubt.
Okay.
Um, you said that injustice is invisible in the primitive society.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, uh, can we be sure of that? Because it's not just the primary needs that decide our temperament, and each individual we are unique.
Mm-hmm.
So injustice, how can it be invisible in a primitive society, and how can it be visible only in a civilized society? Do only these needs, do only these inclination towards unnecessary extra desires, or is that all? Is that the reason to direct us towards injustice?
You see, actually, I would say either the primitive society was below the concept of good and evil, or they were beyond the concept of good and evil. For example, it is Nietzsche who uses the term beyond good and evil. But anyway, I would say they were below good and evil, or they were, of course, even beyond good and evil. And you see, for them, anything, for example, for each and every organism, including the human beings, survival is the greatest, the greatest ideal, or the greatest thing that they have to stick to, isn't it?
Yes.
If survival is the most fundamental thing that they have to stick to, then what they do for their survival, or what they enterprise for their survival is not injustice, and no injustice is involved in anything that they do for their survival, isn't it?
Yes.
For example, in that way, then in such a way, for example, when an organism just try to satisfy its primary needs, then there is no question of injustice according to Plato, because no injustice is visible there. That's why I told you that injustice is invisible there. Injustice is invisible in the sense that there is no question of injustice there. For example, when survival is the fundamental question there, then nobody can discuss about injustice there, because whatever an organism does for its survival, there does not involve any injustice. But anyway, beyond our survival, when we look for certain other needs than our survival, then of course we will have to prey on, or we will have to feast on others' slices, isn't it? For example,
Okay, yes.
for my luxury needs, I will have to plunder the slices of others. Of course, through my spending, through my paying of tax, of course, I am indirectly helping them. I can find out such a justification for this injustice, but still, in order to satisfy my luxury needs, I am just uh, feasting on others' slices. So that is his fundamental concept, and that is the origin or the source of all kinds of injustice, according to Plato. For example, even in the that's why when we move to the contemporary philosophy, we will find out it in Nietzsche also, because when an organism tries to uh, tries to tries to survive, or tries to improve its own power, then there is no question of uh, injustice there for him. But anyway, it is debatable. Well, it is quite complicated. We will discuss it later when we come to Nietzsche. But as far as Plato is concerned, in a society, in a primitive society where primary needs are sought and satisfied, there is no question of uh, injustice. Of course, as you asked me, most probably it might be a state where the people lived even below the concept of good and evil, below the concept of good and evil, not beyond good and evil, but sometimes it could be a point where the concept about justice did not evolve, or the concept about justice was not present. So it was below good and evil, I would say,
Okay.
not beyond good and evil. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. There
Okay.
is a query from Mr. Vinod Kumar.
Yeah.
Is there any similar doctrine in Indian philosophy as Plato's?
Oh, in Indian philosophy, of course, you see, as far as art and poetry is concerned, you see, in Indian uh, philosophy as such, I don't find striking parallels with Plato. No, because Plato's philosophy is actually a unique contribution as far as this uh, idea and image are concerned. But of course, when we move to his epistemology, when we move to his system of what we call the noble lies, for example, then we do find parallels everywhere, not only in Indian philosophy, everywhere. For example, he speaks about noble lies. Of course, a lie is not noble. To lie is not a noble thing, isn't it? But still, he uses a term, noble lie. Of course, some translators would translate it as magnificent myth. That means, for example, those who are in power, in order to remain in power, they will have to generate quite a lot of what we call falsities, or today, for example, right now we are speaking about the post-truth era, no? So in the post-truth era, actually, we are generating, or we are running factories that produce falsities, and we are preventing people from accessing the really real thing or truth. So in the same way, in Platonic philosophy also, in his exactly in his Republic, in his book Republic, he says that in order to have power, in order to access power, and in order to remain in power, you will have to teach people certain false stories, certain you will have to lie them, you will have to tell them lies, and by telling them lies, not only you have to tell them lies, and you have to make them believe that they are really true, and these people would believe that these things are really real, and they would not try to make any revolution. So uh, for example, when we speak about birth, For example, you are born so and so, so you don't have any way out. You cannot get out of your, for example, when we speak about what we call, for example, I would say in Indian society, when we speak about caste system, for example, if you are born in a caste, then there is no way out. In the same way, Plato also says, for example, he would say that there are three kinds of people: the rulers, then the auxiliary, then the soldiers, and then the farmers. So the ruler class, the soldier class, and the farmer class. And he would say that these three groups are born with three metals. The first one is born with gold, the second one with silver, and the third one with bronze. And he would say that a ruler is born with gold, and therefore he should not seek gold, and he should not be attracted to gold. Of course, in that sense, it's okay. Then it can prevent what we call quite a lot of scams and so on. Well, good. That's okay. Corruption can be sometimes prevented, I would say. But he does not stop there. He would say that if you are born with silver, then there is no way out of silver. You cannot access to gold. That means from your class, or from the class in which you are born, you don't have any way out. So you are permanently imprisoned in the class to which you are born. So there is no chance for social revolution. If there is no chance for social revolution, then the ruling party is safe. The ruler is safe. So from the grassroots level, there is no chance of revolution. From the grassroots level, the people will never try to bring a revolution in the society, or to bring a revolutionary change in the society. Therefore, the rulers would see to the fact that such a system is always safeguarded. And Plato is also trying to safeguard the authority, or safeguard those who are in power, to ensure their rule forever. So in that sense, we have got parallels in not only in Indian literature, everywhere. For example, when you get into the literature of Kanja Ilaya, most probably you might have heard about his what we call, he has written quite a lot of books, and Kanja Ilaya would say that it is spiritual fascism, because for example, everywhere, not only in Christianity, in Islam, in Hinduism, everywhere, in every religion, for example, the priestly class, they are trying to dominate the people, and they are saying that we have access to a kind of esoteric knowledge to which you don't have any access. For example, when we speak about knowledge, for example, he also says, Kanja Ilaya says, for example, a man who does manual work, he also has got his own knowledge. For example, a man who studied Veda, or a man who studied what we call the cultic dimensions of a religion, no matter whether it is Christianity, Hinduism, or any other religion. So a priest would say that my knowledge about Vedas, my knowledge about slogas, my knowledge about Bible, my knowledge about Quran, such knowledge is only such things are knowledge. Only such things can be classified as knowledge. But a farmer, he also knows what we call some certain things about animal husbandry, but such things are not considered as knowledge. So we don't classify such things, his informations, as knowledge, because we have to rule them, and we have to always tell them that they are not knowledgeable persons. Their knowledge is not knowledge. But he knows certain things about farming. He knows certain things about animal husbandry, which this priest does not know. So in order to have power, in order to remain in power, we have even classified what knowledge is and what knowledge is not. And what he has is not knowledge. That's called spiritual fascism. So this spiritual fascism, through noble lies, is promoted everywhere.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Vinod Kumar has one more doubt. Is it right to say that freedom from fear brought civilization?
Oh, you see, that's freedom from fear. You see, not. I would say we are you see, civilization is a process. Civilization is always in making. So we cannot pinpoint or we cannot define what civilization is. It is in making. Therefore, we will have to move on, and even freedom from fear, it is also in process. It is also developing, no? So we have not yet achieved complete freedom from fear. So in a sense, freedom from fear or the de-divinization, as I told you earlier, in the same sense, a kind of what we call a kind of debunking from fear, debunking is taking place here also.
Okay. There is one more query, not from him. Was Plato reflecting Aristotle when he talked about justice?
No, actually, Aristotle was his disciple. Aristotle was Plato's disciple.
Okay. The next question is from Chaitanya, Miss Chaitanya Elsa.
Yeah.
Poets, sculptors, and artists would have certainly be there in the primitive society too. Probably not in the present way of our understanding. What's your thoughts on that? Yes.
Of course, you see, when if poetry or if literature is, for example, if art is considered or art is rendered as a kind of imitation, then of course a kind of mimicking or imitation existed always. Even in developing science, even in what we call in curbing nature, natural powers, we used this kind of this power of imitation, I would say. For example, in making certain models or in tapping the natural resources or power, we have always made use of this what we call imitation or mimicking. So in that sense, in a crude form, art might have existed. Even in making society, we have used art. Even in coming together as a society, even in our gregarious nature, we have utilized our art of mimicking, no doubt. But as far as Plato is concerned, he speaks about literature, art, sculpture, poetry in the present form. He speaks about, of course, when he speaks about poetry, he might have had Thucydides, I mean, Aeschylus or Sophocles in his mind, or Euripides in his mind, or Homer in his mind, or Hesiod in his mind. So in that sense, of course, in its crude form, poetry might have existed if poetry is considered as a kind of mimicking.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Here is another question from Miss Brunda. Isn't it the responsibility of a poet who believes he is a prophet or seer to replicate or triplicate and reveal the idea what is invisible to the world? Otherwise, how can knowledge be dispensed?
You see, today, I would say, well, when we move to the literary theory, to the contemporary theories, then I would say what we will have to reverse what Plato said. For example, today, actually, when Plato criticizes art and poetry as emanated from injustice, right now, art and poetry are used in the modern world as a weapon against injustice, as a weapon to fight injustice, isn't it? So in that sense, we have to reinvent the meaning of art and poetry. And today, poetry, art, and literature are really doing a wonderful job in what we call in fighting injustice, in bringing justice to the society. Yes.
Yes, thank you, sir. This question is from Angela. When Jaspers talks about an age of reason, does he include contemporary religious practices within reason?
No. Actually, he is concerned about the division of history. For example, he would say that, for example, when we speak about the birth of Jesus as the dividing line in history, he would say what remarkable thing took place in or with the birth of Jesus. Only a single person was born. Of course, he has, most probably, those who believe in Jesus Christ, they would say that he has revolutionized the whole history of the world. Of course, they have got all the freedom to believe so, but not the whole world would agree with that. For example, as far as the intellectual world is concerned, in 500 BC, quite a lot of remarkable things took place. Because Buddha was born in India, Vartamana Mahavira was born in India, Confucius was born in China. Then, of course, in the Greek world, great thinkers like Socrates. Of course, not really. He doesn't mean Socrates alone. Actually, he is speaking about Homer, Hesiod. Then, of course, Thales, Anaximander, then Pythagoras, then of course Socrates, Plato, and so on. Anyway, all these things took place as a ubiquitous thing. Of course, he is also speaking about, he's also referring to Judaism, where the prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah, they preached. So it was a ubiquitous surge of reason. And such a visible surge of reason is not present or is not seen in the period where when Jesus was born. So except except the birth of Jesus, we don't find a remarkable surge of reason everywhere in the world then. Therefore, we cannot divide history as AD and BC. Of course, we do still follow that division, but he says that if we could divide history as pre-axial and post-axial, then it would be a bit more sensible. That is what his position is. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor. There is one more question. Is there Myoticus in Indian philosophy?
Just a minute. There is Myotics, yeah, of course. Just a minute.
Okay, we'll wait.
Okay.
In the meantime, dear participants, please write your name in that chat box. I need to know how many of you find it difficult to use the chat box, and I wish to rectify that at the earliest. Thank you.
Hello, Sridevi ma'am.
Yes.
I can't use my chat box. Message when I send message, it's shown that say message sending is failed.
Okay. Are you using your mobile phone?
No. I'm using my iPad.
Okay. Okay. As of now, the setting is such that chatting is open, enabled for everyone
Yeah,
because you're all
but
in this team.
yeah, I can see the chat box thing. I can write, but when I send, it says that message sending has failed. I don't know why.
Okay. I'll try to seek some expert advice.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So, ma'am, can I ask a question?
Yes. To the resource person?
Yeah.
Okay, you can unmute yourself. You can ask the question directly as soon as he unmutes himself because right now he just
Okay.
sought 2 minutes break from us.
Okay.
Okay, you can ask your
Okay.
question directly. Thank you.
Okay.
Ma'am, I can't use the chat box. I'm using the phone.
Manisha. Okay, are you already a team member? Did you get the notification that you're invited to join this team?
I got a notification, but it was the name. It was not for participation. I was not in as participation. I was invited as guest.
Okay, you are all added as guests because you are not part of this organization. That's all. I'll
Okay,
try to rectify it. Thank you, sir.
uh,
Hello.
okay, teacher. So, what was the question?
The question was, is there meioticus in Indian philosophy?
You see, meiotics is not an exclusive term that should be ascribed to Greek philosophy alone. No, anyone can practice meiotics. For example, even in our circles, in our academic circles, there are good teachers who try to convince students and to make students produce uh, the truth or produce knowledge which is deep inherent in them. For example, actually, when we motivate students to produce their best, then of course we are also doing the duty, or we are also accomplishing the duty of a midwife, isn't it? So in that sense, any person can become a midwife as far as a philosophical discussion or an academic discussion is concerned. So the duty that of a duty that of a midwife is not an exclusive thing that is belonging to Socrates alone. But anyway, it is Plato who theorized it.
Okay, sir, Miss Rija Sridharan has a query for you.
Yeah.
Miss Rija, yes, please unmute. Okay.
Okay, sir. My name is Rija.
Okay, Sriya.
I have a problem with Carl Jesperson's periodization of history. He has categorized history as mythological period and then logical
Logos
period.
period of logos, yeah.
Okay, so can we call ourselves logical even in the 21st century when in terms of our religious beliefs? Can a religious person be a logical person? So is it possible to think that mythological period is not logical and this period is more logical?
Yeah.
I'm doubtful when it comes to our religion and our beliefs and our belief in God,
Okay. Okay.
especially. So how logical are we?
Oh, Srija, that's an interesting question. You see, uh, you know the answer, no? You see, as I told you, when history is seen as a de-divinization process, this de-divinization is not accomplished. It's not accomplished. You see, it is not an accomplished project. Actually, we have just started the de-divinization with the axial age, but it has to go forward miles and miles, I would say. So it is it is not a completed project. Therefore, we will have to move further. Therefore, we cannot say that we have already reached the logical age, or we are completely logical, or we have just entered the threshold of logical age with axial age. No, so through the axial period or through the axial age, we have just entered the threshold of rational age or logical age or the scientific age or the de-divinized age. And this de-divinization has to go on. It has to continue even today. Even today. So, in that sense, we have to move on. For example, you see, uh, even today, we are doing the same. Parallel to this de-divinization, we are also doing a kind of divinizing process. No, as you mentioned, parallel to this de-divinization, a kind of building the new divinized entities. We are doing the same that also. No, today. For example, in Chandala Pichugi, in Kumaranashan's Chandala Pichugi, Kumaranashan says, ഇന്നലെ ചെയ്ത ഒരു അബദ്ധങ്ങൾ മൂടർക്ക് ഇന്നത്തെ ആചാരമാകാം, നാളത്തെ ശാസ്ത്രവുമാകാം, അതിൽ മൂളായിക സമ്മതൻ രാജൻ. ഫോർ എക്സാമ്പിൾ, what we have done as an idiotic thing in the past, when it goes unchallenged, sometimes it would become a custom. And tomorrow, sometimes it can also become a science. You see, then we are actually reversing the process. We are not going forward with de-divinization. On the other hand, we are divinizing it. So along with de-divinization, to our utter disappointment, a kind of divinization process is also taking place parallelly. So we have to admit that. So I cannot say that we have completed this de-divinization project. On the other hand, we have got parallel to de-divinization, a kind of divinization is also going on, and we have to move further. We have to go miles and miles. Is it okay, Srija?
Okay, sir.
Yes, thank you, sir. There is one more doubt.
Okay.
It's more of a confusion, actually. In the School of Athens, in School of Athens fresco, Plato says reality is matter, but in Republic he is talking about the ideal world. Is there any sort of contradiction there?
Plato is actually saying that the reality is idea. That means it is up above the skies. The reality is above the skies. And you see, Aristotle is saying that reality is matter.
Oh.
And what's your point, actually?
Actually, the person who asked the question said, in Athens fresco, Plato says reality is matter.
No. Plato is saying that reality is idea. That is why his finger is seen as pointing towards the skies. That means you cannot find any reality here in this material world.
Okay.
On the other hand, the hand of of course, the finger is not seen there, but the whole hand is seen there. His hand is Aristotle's hand is seen in this material world.
Okay. I think we have come to the end of the questions. Thank you all participants
Sridevi,
for
Sridevi,
yes.
Sridevi,
Yes, ma'am.
one doubt. May I just clarify one doubt?
Okay.
Father, may I ask you something? We speak about the Socratic method of teaching. Is
Yeah,
it
okay.
question answers through asking question answers? Is that what is meant by the Socratic method? Because
Uh,
dialogues.
Dialogues.
Is
You
it
see,
what you
you
is it
see.
what you mean by the midwifery? Is it the same as what you mean by midwifery? That bringing out the
Class, class.
knowledge. Yes.
You
Yes.
see, actually, Socrates' method. You see, I would say in the whole history of the world, perhaps Socrates can be called the teacher par excellence, because his teaching method is dialectical method, and in dialectical method, teacher, you see, his method is quite extraordinary. For example, when somebody asks a doubt, of course, he would patiently, or somebody expresses his disagreement, or somebody expresses his own opinion, he would quite patiently hear that. He would listen to it. Then he would say that, of course, well, for example, when Timaeus says something, then he would say, well, Timaeus, what you said is right, and there is point in it, but still, you see, Timaeus, perhaps you can modify the same statement in a better way, like this. Then he would say a better statement. Then Timaeus would say, well, good Socrates, I think it is better. Now my statement has become better. Then another interlocutor would say, no, Socrates, I won't agree with you. Perhaps your method is not right, or what you said is not right. Then, of course, you see, he is not actually attacking the interlocutor. He is not attacking any of the interlocutors involved in this dialogue. On the other hand, he would persuade them to produce better arguments, either pro or contra. Either pro or contra, he would persuade them to better their own arguments, to give better formulations or clearer formulations of their own arguments, and then towards the end, all of them would enter into a better clarity, and that clarity would be the substance of the new concept.
Okay, Father. So you mean he would help them to bring out the best in the disciple.
Exactly,
Yes.
in a clarified way,
Disciple.
in a clear way.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Father Sooraj, for answering all the questions, for giving us such a wonderful time. We could see, every one of us could see the kind of effort you took to wade through all those technical glitches as well as the prayer meetings in your background.
Yeah. Because
Right
you
now,
see, actually, I had to finish it by 11:30. No, so I had
okay.
some programs here. Therefore, I was also a bit perplexed, or I was a bit preoccupied with such things, because I am alone here. There is nobody to help him.
Oh,
So I
okay.
will have to engage in such activities also. So I am
Okay.
really sorry. Otherwise, I could
It's
have.
okay, sir.
That's why in the evenings I am comparatively free. Then
Oh,
I have got a clearer mind. Then, of course, today I was also a bit preoccupied with the internet problem. I mean, the connectivity and so on. But anyway,
okay.
I hope to rectify it soon. Then we will not have. I hope we will not have any problem in the future.
Okay, Doctor. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Anjana Shankar, Head of the Department of the English Department, to offer formal vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay. Dear Father and all the participants, it is already getting late, and I would like to be as brief as possible. But I would be failing in my duty if I don't offer my thanks to a few people who work behind the scenes to make this a reality. First of all, I would like to thank all the participants who sat through all this, who sat through, who waited patiently to uh, amidst all issues, and I'm really grateful to all of them. And then I would like to thank Father Dr. Sooraj Pittappillil, who who actually who found time to be with us all through this session, though he had plenty of other duties, he found time and he sat through all this. Then I would also like to thank my dear colleague, Dr. Preeti Nair, who is IQAC chairperson, who helped us in all the in every stage of this. Then above all, the principal, Dr. Suresh, who is a faculty of the Hindi department, he kindly consented. He was kind enough to be present for the inauguration, though Dr. Sooraj missed it. Then I would like to thank Sri Govika and Dr. Manju, who came here. Dr. Manju, faculty of physics department, she was here to offer for the on behalf of the IQAC. Then Gopika of Commerce Department, she was present and she helped us to rectify the technical glitches. Then above all, Sridevi NS, my dear colleague, who has been taking quite a lot of strain throughout to put everything in order. And also the my research scholars, Sneha, Jacob, Swati, and all the others who worked very hard to make this a reality. And I would like to say that every cloud has a silver lining. And had it not been for this COVID pandemic, we would not have been able to fulfill a long cherished dream of the department members to conduct an online, a series of online lectures that bring together philosophy and literary theory. And we are grateful to all the people who worked to make this a reality. And I also thank all the participants and also Dr. Sooraj Pittappillil. And we await your future sessions also. Thank you, Father. Thank you, participants. Thank you, all the other members. Thank you, Sridevi.
Okay, thank you very much. Even though I could not finish Aristotle today, in the next session I will finish Aristotle and of course the proposed schedule of module 2 also.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
okay.
very much.
When do we meet? When do we meet, Father? The next session, please. Sridevi.
No, as it is planned.
As planned,
because
ma'am.
because
Yes.
I have also planned my timetable. Then it's okay. There is no change.
Okay. Monday
Okay.
Monday
Monday.
evening. Yes.
Monday evening, yeah.
Okay.
Or is
Then
it?
in the
Or is it?
evenings,
Or is it?
even you can
Is it?
come with good questions so that because I have got enough time, then even no matter whether it takes 2 hours, 3 hours, no problem for me.
Or is it? Is Father? Is it Thursday in next class? Next class? When is it?
It's on. It's on 14th, no?
Yes.
Yeah.
14th.
14th
Yes.
evening.
14th is a Saturday evening. Yes.
Yeah, and you see, I have given
Yes.
the literature.
14th.
You can also refer to the literature, and the PowerPoint is also there, so you can refer to the text there, and you can come with fresh questions. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
So
Okay.
14th.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.